Rachel Zegler's behind-the-scenes behavior on She Gets It From Me isn't just making headlines. It's forcing Hollywood to rethink how it handles young, unproven talent. For years, studios rushed to crown the next breakout star, betting millions on charisma and hype. But after the alleged chaos Zegler brought to set, missed call times, script rewrites, and crew walkouts, executives are quietly reconsidering the entire system. Now, whispers are spreading about stricter contracts, behavioral clauses, and a major shift in how younger stars are managed, especially when they're given major roles. Could Zegler's downfall mark a turning point in casting policies across the industry? Stick around! What's happening behind the curtain might reshape Hollywood's future. Let's break it all down. Recasting a lead actor mid-production is the closest thing Hollywood has to pressing the panic button. It's rare, it's disruptive, and it almost always signals total breakdown behind the scenes. For Rachel Zegler, this scenario isn't hypothetical anymore. It's being actively discussed by the studio backing She Gets It From Me. And that alone speaks volumes. Because in this industry, money rules everything. So when producers even entertain the idea of replacing their star after the cameras have already started rolling, it means something has gone catastrophically wrong. Multiple insiders from the set claim that the studio has been holding internal meetings, not just about how to proceed, but whether they can afford to keep Rachel in the film at all. And not in the financial sense. This is about reputational cost, morale collapse, and the risk of total project derailment. The conversations have reportedly escalated to legal and PR departments, with some executives now floating terms like narrative pivot, off-screen resolution, and even insurance override. These are not terms you hear in a healthy production. To be clear, studios will put up with a lot if the end product delivers. Difficult stars, clashing egos, even full-blown meltdowns. None of it's new. But the minute your presence begins to risk the completion of the project itself, that's when the math changes. And by all accounts, Rachel has crossed that line, not because of one explosive incident, but because of a consistent pattern that's slowly eaten away at the foundation of the entire set. The truly shocking part? This isn't a big-budget action film. It's not a Marvel tentpole or a billion-dollar franchise. She Gets It From Me was supposed to be a small, intimate indie drama. Controlled environment with limited locations, a tight cast, and a modest schedule. It should have been smooth sailing. Yet here we are, with the production teetering on the edge of implosion, and the only thing everyone agrees on is this: something has to change, or this film won't survive. And as we dig deeper into what's happening behind the scenes, it becomes clear this chaos didn't begin with a fight. It started with something much smaller. It didn't start with fireworks. There were no viral blow-ups, no shouting matches captured on secret iPhone footage. The downfall of She Gets It From Me began with something far more insidious. An attitude, a presence, a quiet sense from the very first day that something was off. According to multiple crew members, Rachel Zegler didn't show up to work like a rising star eager to prove herself. She walked onto set like the entire production was lucky to have her. A lighting technician who worked the first week of filming put it bluntly. She showed up late, iced coffee in hand, sunglasses on indoors. Not even a hello, just walked past. Like she was the only one that mattered. That may sound like standard celebrity behavior, but this wasn't a celebrity vehicle. Rachel wasn't the focus of the film. She was playing the daughter in a mother-daughter drama, where the emotional center was meant to be Marisa Tomei's character. And yet, from day one, Zegler reportedly carried herself like the star everyone was orbiting around. The issue wasn't just lateness or attitude, it was the energy. Crew members described it as dismissive, entitled, and most of all, contagious. She'd sigh during notes, roll her eyes in rehearsals. Even simple tech setups turned into power plays. One assistant director said it was like she didn't want to be there, but also expected everything to revolve around her. That vibe, over time, began to wear down the entire crew. What was initially brushed off as stress or first-week nerves soon became the norm. People stopped speaking freely around her. Jokes died in the air, communication slowed. One sound technician described it as walking on eggshells all the time. Entire departments began rotating shifts so fewer people had to interact with her directly. Not because she yelled, not because she insulted anyone, but because her energy made every part of the job heavier. And for an indie project with a limited budget and a tight shooting window, that weight adds up fast. When one person acts like the rules don't apply to them, the whole machine starts to grind. Scripts don't get rehearsed, blocking gets skipped, team morale erodes. And the result isn't just a toxic set, it's a ticking time bomb. Everyone knew something had to give, but no one expected what came next. At first, it was subtle, just a few sighs when notes were given, a shrug here and there when blocking was discussed. But insiders say it didn't take long before Rachel Zegler's resistance to direction became impossible to ignore. Director Julia von Hines, a respected filmmaker known for her collaborative style, reportedly tried everything to keep the environment calm. But Zegler wasn't interested in collaboration. She wanted control. Sources close to the production say Zegler frequently challenged von Hines' creative choices, not in private, respectful conversations, but right there in front of the cast and crew. If a scene didn't focus on her character emotionally, she questioned the writing. If the camera wasn't angled to emphasize her presence, she pushed for changes. According to one script supervisor, it was like she believed her instincts were more important than the story. She didn't want to fit into the film, she wanted the film to fit around her. That attitude led to friction that no amount of diplomacy could smooth over. Zegler allegedly began requesting spontaneous script changes, often during the middle of filming. She would suggest different lines, argue that scenes weren't empowering enough, and even rewrite dialogue to make her character appear more dominant, even though, again, she wasn't the lead. Crew members reported that these requests slowed down production and derailed planned shots. "We'd prep for hours based on the approved script," said a camera operator. Then she'd say, "Actually, I think I should say this instead." And everything would grind to a halt. This wasn't a case of an actor improvising with brilliance. It was about control. Von Hines reportedly tried to maintain balance, offering Zegler space to contribute while keeping the broader vision on track. But as one assistant director put it, Rachel didn't want to play a role. She wanted to run the show. And it wasn't just the creative team feeling the pressure. Co-stars began pulling back, quietly voicing concerns in private. They feared that each scene would become another battleground. Eventually, the tension reached a point where the atmosphere on set shifted entirely. Where once there was excitement and creative energy, now there was tension, delay, and constant correction. Every new day felt like a reset button had to be hit, not to move forward, but just to survive another round of revisions and resistance. And in the background, the studio began to worry. Because if the director no longer had authority and the production schedule was falling apart, the damage wasn't just artistic, it was financial. With each delay and reshoot, the budget grew tighter. And Rachel's performance, instead of elevating the film, was starting to bury it beneath layers of dysfunction. And then, someone had enough. There wasn't a dramatic fight. No slammed doors, no shouting across the lot. Just silence. One moment, the production was barely hanging on. The next, a key cast member, described by insiders as the emotional backbone of the entire film, had quietly left the set. No announcement, no explanation, just gone. For everyone else on set, the message couldn't have been clearer. I can't work like this anymore. This wasn't just any actor, this was a veteran of the industry. Someone respected, someone who had carried heavy roles before, often praised for their professionalism and grace under pressure. Their presence was supposed to ground the film, to balance the emotional chaos between characters. But instead, their departure became the spark that ignited the production's full collapse. One crew member who witnessed the moment called it the quietest explosion I've ever seen. According to that source, the actor finished a scene, asked to speak with the director privately, and within an hour, was off the call sheet indefinitely. There was no dramatic send-off, no bad blood aired in public, just a firm decision, and a massive ripple effect. From that moment on, the production's already fragile energy disintegrated. Morale, which had been wavering, dropped like a stone. Departments started breaking down. Makeup artists began showing up late. Wardrobe assistants stopped prepping on schedule. Even basic coordination between scenes became chaotic. As one assistant, camera operator put it, "It was like the air changed. Everyone felt it. We all knew. If they walked, anyone could." And then came the real blow. The realization that no one was willing to take Zegler aside and fix the issue. According to insiders, multiple crew members approached the producers with concerns. The hope was that someone, anyone, would step in and hold her accountable. But that never happened. Instead, the studio reportedly instructed the team to work around it. That phrase, "work around it," became a bitter joke on set, because how do you work around the star of the film when they're the one bringing everything to a halt? At that point, Zegler's behavior stopped being a problem. It became the problem. And what started as subtle defiance, eye rolls, lateness, entitlement, had now cost the film its emotional center. A cast member had quit, the crew was falling apart, and every day of filming became more difficult than the last. But what made things worse, what turned frustration into full-blown resentment, was Rachel's reaction. She reportedly acted as if she was the one being targeted, the victim. She didn't express concern over the walkout. She didn't ask how the team was coping. Instead, insiders say she doubled down, blaming others, accusing people of sabotaging her work, claiming that she was misunderstood. And that moment, when someone walks off a set not in anger but in defeat, that's when the conversation changes. That's when studios go from managing a difficult talent to assessing damage. After the walkout, something shifted. It was as if the tension that had been simmering under the surface suddenly boiled over, and everyone stopped pretending. The quiet professionalism that had kept the production running, even through the tension, disintegrated. Entire departments, makeup, wardrobe, props, began lagging behind. Schedules slipped, tempers flared in whispers, and the once orderly set descended into what one crew member bluntly called a mood war zone. The real issue wasn't just disorganization, it was fear. People didn't know who might be the next target of Rachel's unpredictable moods. One day she'd be cheerful, cracking jokes between takes. The next, cold and dismissive, refusing. Eye contact with the same crew she'd laughed with the day before. "There was no warning," said one assistant script coordinator. One morning she's complimenting costumes. That afternoon she's accusing wardrobe of undermining her character's femininity. What made it more unbearable was that no one felt safe speaking up. Insiders say concerns brought to production were either ignored or deflected. "We were told to be patient," one team lead recalled, that she was under pressure, that she needed space. But while we were giving her space, she was taking up everyone else's. Simple interactions turned into calculated maneuvers. Rehearsals were avoided, conversations became loaded. Some crew members even began altering their shifts, coordinating their availability so they wouldn't have to work near Zegler's trailer. That might sound extreme, but on a film set where time is money, such micro decisions create macro chaos. Sound engineers started falling behind because scenes couldn't be locked in time. Wardrobe assistants had to redo fittings because Rachel reportedly kept demanding last-minute style adjustments to reflect what she called her vision. One camera operator said, "Every single department was in survival mode, not productivity, not creativity, survival." And the most unsettling part? Rachel allegedly didn't seem to notice. Or worse, didn't care. Insiders say she brushed off the growing tension, suggesting the set was simply too traditional or that people didn't get her process. When whispers about toxicity began reaching executive ears, Zegler reportedly claimed she was the one being gaslit, that the team wasn't supporting her creative instincts, that her voice was being silenced. But from the crew's perspective, it was the opposite. "She wasn't just the loudest voice in the room," one key grip explained. "She was the only one speaking, and the rest of us were just trying to keep the lights on." The final straw for many came not in an outburst, but in the realization that no accountability was coming. That Zegler could rewrite scenes, throw schedules into chaos, dismiss crew concerns, and still show up the next day with the full protection of the studio behind her. "She created the storm," said one exhausted crew member, and then stood in the middle of it, claiming she was soaked through like the rest of us. At this point, the film wasn't just in jeopardy, it was unraveling, piece by piece. And everyone knew the storm wasn't over. In fact, it was just getting started. Just when things couldn't seem more chaotic on set, a new and far more dangerous threat began looming: legal exposure. Until this point, the studio had been doing its best to contain the situation, offering vague public statements, keeping the PR machine spinning, and avoiding direct confrontation with Zegler. But that strategy blew up when Rachel went live. Behind the scenes, the studio's legal department immediately began mobilizing. According to production insiders, they launched a full-scale audit of Rachel's social media presence. They weren't just looking at that live stream, they were documenting everything. Instagram stories, TikToks, even clips where fans had edited together her jokes about being double the trouble. One legal assistant called it a digital paper trail of liability. What they were worried about wasn't just the content, it was the contracts. Zegler, like most actors, had signed strict confidentiality and non-disparagement clauses when she joined the film. Those contracts are standard, designed to prevent exactly this kind of situation: public commentary that undermines a still active production. By joking about the studio ignoring her, by implying sabotage or mistreatment, she may have crossed a legal line. Worse yet, she wasn't stopping. Multiple sources say she continued engaging with fans online, hinting at behind-the-scenes drama, liking tweets that framed her as a misunderstood artist, and laughing off criticism in a way that seemed, at best, tone-deaf. Internally, the studio wasn't laughing. In fact, their legal team reportedly began drafting separation clauses that would allow them to cut ties with Zegler without triggering a full reshoot. These included ideas like rewriting scenes, using body doubles, repurposing footage, and even reworking the story to minimize her presence. Let that sink in. The studio was exploring how to erase their own lead actress from a nearly finished film, all because of potential legal fallout. And there was more. Journalists had started sniffing around. Off-the-record stories began surfacing. Crew members, still bound by NDAs, began leaking subtle but damaging accounts of what had been happening on set. One assistant director allegedly told a reporter they felt genuinely unsafe during a day of filming when Zegler screamed at the director over a blocked shot. Another crew member reported that the environment had become so hostile, team members were actively scheduling themselves to avoid being near her. For the studio, this was no longer about reputation, it was about survival. Because once a production starts drawing legal scrutiny, and once the press gets involved, the risk goes far beyond a box office flop. It becomes about lawsuits, brand damage, and potentially losing millions in investor money. And while Zegler kept posting cryptic TikToks and playing coy on live streams, the studio's lawyers were quietly building a case not just to protect the film, but to prepare for what came next: the possible removal of Rachel Zegler entirely. In Hollywood, silence is never accidental. When a celebrity faces backlash, the industry usually rallies. Co-stars post support, directors issue statements, and studios craft press releases to soften the blow. But in Rachel Zegler's case, something else happened entirely. As the drama surrounding "She Gets It From Me" intensified, the people around her didn't come to her defense. They disappeared. Not a single co-star posted in her favor. Not a word from the director. No behind-the-scenes photos, no nostalgic posts. No, she's a joy to work with. Even her supposed allies, fellow actors she'd collaborated with on other projects, went completely quiet. And in an industry where even the smallest controversy can be neutralized by a well-timed Instagram story, that kind of silence sends a deafening message. Insiders say the reason for this collective ghosting is simple: damage control. No one wants to be caught defending someone who might be labeled a liability. One studio executive, speaking anonymously, put it like this: "Everyone's seen what's going on. No one wants to attach their name to it." That includes producers, casting directors, and even PR teams who once pitched Zegler as Hollywood's next leading lady. Some of those same people have now started scrubbing their connections to her online. A producer who previously gushed about Zegler's potential in interviews reportedly removed all posts mentioning her from social media. A well-known casting director allegedly told their team that Zegler is not worth the insurance risk. That phrase, insurance risk, is not used lightly in this industry. It means someone's reputation has moved from being a PR headache to a financial threat. And it wasn't just individuals backing away. Brands, too, began distancing themselves. A major fashion label that had reportedly signed Zegler for a spring campaign quietly pulled all her images from upcoming releases. No announcement, no formal press statement, just a silent wipe. Her photo shoots disappeared from internal databases. Her face vanished from lookbooks. Even her fan base, once quick to defend her, began fracturing. Threads that once celebrated her authenticity and fearlessness slowly shifted in tone. Now, fans were asking uncomfortable questions. Why hadn't anyone defended her? Why were respected actors and directors avoiding her name like a legal landmine? Why had her professional circle gone dark? The truth is, Hollywood knows how to protect its own when they want to. The silence surrounding Rachel Zegler wasn't oversight. It was strategy. It was the industry's way of saying she's on her own. And in an environment where reputation is everything, being alone is the last thing you want to be. Rachel Zegler didn't break into Hollywood. Hollywood broke into her life like a fairy tale. Discovered through an open casting call, she beat out over 30,000 hopefuls to land the role of Maria in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. She was barely out of high school, with no major credits to her name, and yet there she was, singing center stage in a reimagined classic, handpicked by one of the greatest directors of all time. Critics called her performance radiant. Hollywood insiders said she was destined for greatness. And the buzz around her was electric. But buzz is a fickle thing. Within 2 years, the same industry that had crowned her the future of cinema began using a different word to describe her: liability. That's the kind of shift that doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly, with whispers, a missed interview here, a strange comment during a press tour, an Instagram caption that rubs the wrong way. At first, those moments are brushed off as youth or inexperience. But when they start adding up, when every project starts feeling heavier, not smoother, executives begin to ask hard questions. And in Rachel's case, those questions started, leading to red flags. Insiders say that even before She Gets It From Me, producers were starting to grow wary. Her press tour for Snow White had raised eyebrows. Her public comments, where she openly criticized the original Disney story and questioned why the prince existed at all, sparked backlash. Fans accused her of being disrespectful, arrogant, even ungrateful. But the industry gave her the benefit of the doubt. She was young. She'd learn, except she didn't. Instead of softening her approach, she reportedly leaned harder into it. And by the time she arrived on the set of She Gets It From Me, that once charming boldness had hardened into something else. Demands, defensiveness, distrust of the very people hired to make her shine. The result? Chaos on set, PR disasters, legal, headaches. And one consistent theme: people walked away from working with Rachel Zegler feeling exhausted. Not inspired, not challenged, just drained. And that's where the red flag label comes in. In Hollywood, being a risk profile doesn't mean you've committed some massive scandal. It means that behind closed doors, producers look at your name and ask themselves, is it worth it? And right now, when that question is posed about Rachel Zegler, the answer, more and more, is no. Because no amount of talent is worth a production that falls apart. No buzz is worth a set where crew members rotate schedules just to avoid being near you. And no fairy tale beginning can survive an industry that runs on deadlines, budgets, and harmony. Rachel Zegler was supposed to be the chosen one, a breakout star with a voice, a presence, and a future. But now, her name is showing up on a very different kind of list, one that suggests producers are quietly moving on. And in this town, once that shift happens, it's nearly impossible to reverse. She Gets It From Me was never meant to be controversial. It was supposed to be a quiet, character-driven redemption arc, an opportunity for Rachel Zegler to step out of the blockbuster spotlight and into something more grounded. A story about family, a showcase of depth, a break from CGI and spectacle, and for a moment it looked like the perfect setup. A respected director, an acclaimed co-star, a script built for nuance. All Zegler had to do was show up and do the work. Instead, she reportedly brought chaos. Not loud, scandalous chaos, but slow, suffocating, behind-the-scenes disruption that spread like wildfire across the set. Missed call times, last-minute script rewrites, crew tensions, co-star exits, and an alleged refusal to see how any of it might be her fault. By the time producers began considering a recast, the damage wasn't just creative, it was systemic. A broken schedule, a broken team, and a studio quietly panicking over whether their film would even make it across the finish line. But perhaps the most damning evidence of all was the silence. The people who once championed Rachel, the agents, the executives, the influencers, who helped craft her image, stopped talking. No one came to her defense, no one tried to reframe the narrative, and that kind of silence in Hollywood doesn't happen by mistake. It happens when the industry has already moved on. Because here's the truth. Hollywood doesn't need a reason to drop someone. It just needs a risk. And right now, Rachel Zegler is being viewed as exactly that. A risk to budgets, a risk to harmony, a risk to reputations. And in a business where time is money and drama has a price tag, no studio wants to gamble on a headline that could turn into a lawsuit. Could Rachel recover from this? Possibly. Hollywood loves a comeback story, when the star is willing to change, to reflect, to own their missteps. But if her recent behavior is any indication, that reflection may be a long way off. And every cryptic TikTok, every dismissive live stream, every ignored PR strategy only reinforces the perception that she's not ready to grow. She's just waiting for people to move on, but they're not moving on. They're closing doors. And the longer Rachel waits to turn the mirror on herself, the more likely it is that when she finally reaches for the next opportunity, there won't be anyone left to pick up the call. Because in an industry built on performance, professionalism is the real star, and no one is bigger than the production. That's the full breakdown of Rachel Zegler's unraveling and the ripple effect it's sending through Hollywood. But now we want to hear from you. Do you think the industry is being too harsh? Or did Rachel cross a line too big to ignore? Could this be the wake-up call Hollywood needs when it comes to managing young stars? Or just another PR storm that'll blow over? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're reading all of them. And if you found this deep dive interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in Hollywood's most dramatic stories. This industry moves fast, and we're here to keep you ahead. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and stay tuned.